Hi everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. If you're new here, my name is Fiona. This is my first YouTube video that I'm shooting in quite a while because I've just been really busy with medical school, but I really wanted to show you guys my Notion template because I've gotten so many questions on it, and also I feel like it's a really important resource. It's a genuinely really powerful tool. Everyone talks about using Notion for medical school, but no one really explained it to me, so I kind of had to figure it out myself. I got 75% on my first year exam, and I think that a lot of this is dedicated to using Notion and Anki, and I can do a separate tutorial on Anki, but I think that Notion was genuinely really imperative to my journey in medical school. Without further ado, let's get into it. Okay, so I'm going to be doing all of this on my little MacBook setup I have here. Okay, so this is my setup of my Notion. I have made the title, the banner really cute. It's like an ultimate guide all in one place, and all my notes are also available on my website, medbyfio.com, and I can link that in the description below. Our uni has phases, so I used phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, phase 4, and that was just how we structured the medical course. And of course I have a little icon here, and we have Miffy, so that is really adorable. We have embedded a Pomodoro as well as a Spotify playlist. This Spotify playlist actually saved my life, and during exam season I realized I couldn't revise without music. Having pop music in your head just didn't do it for me, especially having lyrics. It doesn't help you get the content to settle in. So I've never used music to study in my life, but this particular exam season I started to listen to classical music, and I get why people are a fan now. This over here is really cool because it's a Notion calendar that's kind of embedded, and you can also sync it with Google Calendar and Apple Calendar. I am a big fan of Apple Calendar, but Notion Calendar is really good for visually seeing what kind of pages you need to revise. So I've only put these as an example here because I'm currently on summer vacation and I have no revision I need to do. But for example, pathology, you can put different page numbers that you're reading from textbooks, and you can also visually see this really quickly while you're doing your notes as well, so you can just flick back and forth between sub pages. And yeah, I just found that this really helped me when I was in first year because there's so much reading you have to get through. Going from that jump between A level and uni, it's quite a gradual transition, but the knowledge you need to prioritize is definitely a big step up. I definitely needed to organize my life a lot more in order to achieve the same results that I did at A level with only 3 subjects. You know, medical school, there's so many different topics. I think in first year we covered the entire body system, so neuro, physiology, anatomy, every approach, every body system, we've done it. So I think the amount of knowledge you genuinely need to know is a lot steeper than the the bubble specification in A level. So jumping into my favorite part, we have anatomy, histology, and lectures. So I'm going to show you how I organize it. I have arranged them in terms of teaching blocks, so you can see that we started off the year with IMMS, so that's Introduction to Medical Sciences, as well as genetics and biochemistry. So it's just the basics A level. You have the Krebs cycle, you have glycolysis, but in much more intense detail. And then we have embryology. There's kind of embryology and everything, so I just added that tag so you can add it on when you have embryology lectures within cardiology, respiratory, it's in everything. Everything starts from somewhere, you know. So yeah, we also had GI, so we learned about the colon, the stomach, and we also had neuro, which was a big block, learning about the 12 cranial nerves, very typical, very normal. And then we had renal, reproduction, which are smaller blocks in themselves, and MSK, which was not covered as much but was more heavy in anatomy. I will look at the lecture notes. So the way I organized this was that I put the teaching block, which was a multi-select tool. You can add your own properties here, and you can see that they're a lot of properties to choose from, and I tried to like color coordinate them the way I imagine them in my head. So of course neuro is blue, of course skin is yellow, of course musculoskeletal is like the color of blood. So that's the way I did it. And also checking that Anki after you finish like making a lecture's worth of Anki notes, like Anki flashcards, was the highlight of my day. On a typical day we had 4 lectures, I would say, and those 4 lectures, like after like hour on hour and hour of lectures, like you just stay in the library and you get to tick that Anki off, and it's the best thing that's happened to you all day. Having that little serotonin rush genuinely like boosted my mood a lot. So yeah, and then I also put the type because this is all the same table, so I have to explain to you guys. These 3 tables here, 1, 2 and 3, are all part of the same table. They're literally, I think it's a table called phase 1, and you can see here I've just filtered it, and there's 4 types, ILA, anatomy, lecture and histology. And they're all arranged by type. So anatomy is like here, it's the same table. Histology here is the same table. So yeah, I think it just makes things so much more organized for me, especially since I don't have to input each teaching block over and over again. I'll go into the actual lecture notes themselves and tell you how I take them. So let's choose, for example, pancreatic exocrine secretion. We start off with a big image. A lot of the times I do that just to get like a brief overview of what's happening, and then I do this thing where I like highlight things. Highlighting the important parts kind of help them stand out in my brain for me. I've done that since A-level, like doing my A-level notes, just highlighting things in different colors. It just helps my brain like process that. So in the exam I would be like, I remember what color it was, I remember how long the highlighted section was, and then I'll start to put the pieces together and remember like the context in that the information was in. And I think that's really important for knowledge processing as well as like long-term memory things. It's just important for like encoding that information in your brain. Also we have like enzymes. I actually don't remember like writing this down just because my summer holiday, it's like the 3rd month, so I don't remember this, but I will get into Anki later. So yeah, we have lipases, amylases, different enzymes, and here we can see like I've done a table here. It's a simple table, so it doesn't like, it's not like the typical tables where they have lots of data sets and they update as you go along, like with different like filters and everything. This is just a normal table, and I like to just like write down tables because again, it helps with encoding the information in your brain, and you can kind of like see where it is spatially, like you visualize it during the exam season. And when you're writing your paper, you will think about, okay, for example, I remember cholecystokinin is on the top row, okay, and I remember what stimulus it was, and then you can remember like what goes beneath it. And I don't know if that makes sense to anyone. I don't know if that makes sense to anyone, but if it can even help one person, then I'll be satisfied. Okay, so we've gotten into some of my lecture notes. Let's have a look at my anatomy. In medical school we have cadavers, and I don't have any like images of cadavers in my anatomy notes because that is kind of like unethical. So this is one of the beginning like I'm a mess things that you see. This is before you start learning about the cranial nerves and the like different lobes and what they do. This is just basic like anatomy terminology, and as you can see here I've got different like diagrams, like 2-dimensional diagrams that help me ease into the process of note-taking. I've kind of split it into 2 columns here. I think that just makes it a lot more like simple to see and like easier to visualize. Again, during exam season as a visual learner, I would just write down the notes exactly how I see them into like some scrap paper and just keep doing that over and over and over again. And when it comes to your paper, you'll just remember everything that you scribbled down in the exact way that you've written it, and it just makes it so much easier. We have some beautiful photos, diagrams of the ventricles, and here we have the blood supplies. So this is the arteries, and as we can see, not all of them are labeled here. And then yeah, we have the sympathetic, parasympathetic system, everything, fight or flight. We have very brief cranial nerves, and your dermatomes. I'm going to click into my introduction to histology and cell ultrastructure, which was the first thing that we kind of learned in histology. And a lot of this is also needed in first year. So as you can see, I've got quite a detailed diagram here. And then we also have the different types of cells, shapes of cells, activity of cells, everything. Also, one thing that I really like to do is I like to put comments on my notes, and that is because I kind of see it as a sticky note method. So what that means is usually when you write down notes, you put sticky notes on parts that you feel like are additional information but not important enough to write in the main text. These are more of things that will help jog my memory, or these are things that I think maybe something that the professor has said but isn't relevant to exams, or just another piece of information that I've seen online and not sure if we really need to know or not, adding context to things. Something else that I found really cool about my Notion was that I did it based on my systems-based curriculum. So if you don't know what that means, it's you spend 6 weeks in one block. So I started with IMMS in genetics and biochemistry, and then you move on to a different organ system. So it went from cardiovascular system to respiratory system to like GI, and then completely different. So one thing that I've found out that you could do is sort it based on the teaching block it had. So this is so that when I'm in year 2, year 3, year 4, year 5, and I have it all in one table, and in year 3 I can have another table that's all cardio, and then it will be so easy if I want to look something up, if I want to make sure that my understanding of a condition is correct, I can just refer to the systems-based like filing system systems-based filing system that I have in place, that I can just look it up in the systems and it will be here. So that just makes it really simple to find things, especially if you don't want to just rifle through your lecture notes. Some of my additional resources are basically just what I showed you just now, like anatomy. You only really have anatomy in first year, so this is probably the most it's gonna get, but these are really detailed notes. I've spent a lot of time on them. For example, in respiratory we have, you know, the nasal cavity here, and then I put some images for your reference. We have some paranasal sinuses, and they're also very incredibly detailed as well. You have the teeth and gums, which I didn't know you had to learn in medical school. And then you also have the tongue and everything else, like tonsils. So that's all I had to like learn for first year. But again, it is 97 plus lectures and a lot of anatomy and histology that I had to do for exam season. But yeah, that's all I have for you today. I really hope you enjoyed this Notion tour. I hope it reflects on how much work you have to do for first year, as well as how different the learning curve is between A-level and medical school. It is quite a big step for many people, but I think with the right notes, with the right techniques, you're able to get there and be able to achieve those grades that you similarly had in A-level. Let me know if you have any other video ideas in the future. Just comment them below and I'll try to answer all your questions. And if you're not already, please subscribe to my social media. So it's Med by Fio on all platforms. And yeah, thank you so much and see you next time.